Welcome back to the Peak Performance Podcast. I am Brad Young, and today we have reached something I have been thinking about for a long time. Episode 100. 100 episodes of digging into history, science, and human discipline to uncover what separates the extraordinary from the ordinary. Today we go back nearly 2,000 years to study one of the most formidable fighting forces the world has ever seen, the Roman Legionary. Not a single hero, not a celebrated general, but the standardized professional soldier who marched, trained, and fought under the eagle standard of Rome. These men conquered much of the Mediterranean world not through luck or birthright, but through systems, rigorous systems of training, nutrition, discipline, and unity. This is episode 100. Let us begin. What made the Roman legion unstoppable? Before we talk about how to train like a Roman legionary, we need to understand what we are actually talking about. The Roman legion was not a ragtag band of warriors. It was a professional, heavily armored, tactically adaptable war machine composed of citizen soldiers bound by oath and shaped by months, sometimes years, of systematic preparation. Units like the Legio X Gemina, one of Julius Caesar's most trusted legions, were not born great. They were made great through repetition, structure, and an unrelenting commitment to readiness. The average Roman soldier was expected to march up to 20 miles a day in full kit, carrying armor, weapons, tools, and rations. Then arrive at camp and immediately begin constructing fortifications. He could fight in tight formation, pivot to open ground tactics, and hold discipline when lesser men would break. He was not a superhuman. He was a trained human operating at the outer edge of what consistent effort can produce. That is the lesson. That has always been the lesson. The Roman legionary is proof that ordinary people subjected to extraordinary systems can perform at levels that look miraculous from the outside. Endurance, built through daily marching and sustained physical effort over months of training. Strength, developed through body weight drills, weighted kit, and weapon practice repeated without end. Discipline, enforced through strict routine, unit accountability, and consequences for failure. Adaptability, trained to perform under changing terrain, weather, and enemy tactics without losing composure. Rigorous training, the foundation of the legion. The Roman military was one of the first institutions in the ancient world to treat physical training as a non-negotiable science rather than an afterthought. New recruits, called Teroni, were subjected to months of basic conditioning before they were ever handed a real weapon. They ran, they marched, they dug, they lifted. They practiced weapon drills with wooden swords and shields twice as heavy as the real ones. The philosophy was simple and ruthless. If the training is harder than the battle becomes manageable. For us in the modern world, this translates into something actionable and powerful. If you want to perform at the highest level, your training cannot be comfortable. It must be deliberately harder than the demands of your daily life. Consider incorporating weighted marches into your weekly routine. Strap on a loaded backpack, start with 20 to 30 pounds, and walk at a brisk pace for 45 minutes to an hour. Do this 2 or 3 times per week. This builds what exercise scientists call functional endurance, the kind of full-body stamina that transfers directly into real-world performance and mental toughness. Pair those marches with interval running, not casual jogging, but structured sprints followed by walking recovery periods. Sprint for 30 seconds, walk for 90, and repeat 8 to 12 times. The Roman soldier did not jog at a comfortable pace and call it a day. He trained to move fast under load and recover quickly. That is what interval work mimics. And then build your foundation with body weight exercises. Push-ups, planks, dips, pull-ups, and squats. No gym required. The Roman legionary had no bench press. He had his own body, a heavy shield, and a set of standards he was expected to meet every single day. The modern legionary workout blueprint. Here's how you can structure your week to mirror the training principles of the Roman legion. This is not a program for beginners who are completely sedentary. This is a framework for adults who are ready to move from average to elite through consistent progressive effort. Start here, build gradually, and trust the process the same way a tyro in ancient Rome trusted his centurion. Monday and Thursday, weighted march. Load a backpack with 20 to 40 pounds. Walk for 45 minutes to 1 hour at a pace that keeps your heart rate elevated but allows steady breathing. This is your endurance engine. Do not skip it. Tuesday and Friday, interval running. Warm up for 5 minutes, then run 8 to 12 sprint intervals of 30 seconds on and 90 seconds off. Cool down for 5 minutes. Total time is under 30 minutes, but the metabolic effect lasts for hours. Wednesday and Saturday. Body weight strength. 3 to 4 rounds of push-ups, squats, lunges, plank holds, and dips. Aim for 50 to 100 push-ups per session spread across sets. Rest only as long as you need. Keep the rest periods honest. Sunday, active recovery. Walk, stretch, or do light mobility work. The Roman soldier built camp on his rest days. Use yours to prepare your body and mind for the week ahead. Structured discipline. The routine is the weapon. Here's something most people in the self-improvement world get exactly backward. They think discipline is about willpower. They believe that high performers are simply people with more internal fire, more grit, more raw determination than everyone else. The Roman military would have laughed at that idea. Discipline in the Roman context was not a personality trait. It was a structure. It was a schedule. It was a set of daily obligations that removed the need for willpower altogether because the decision to train was never up for debate. The Roman Legionary's day was regulated from before sunrise to after sundown. There was a time for physical training, a time for weapons drill, a time for fortification work, a time for eating, and a time for sleep. Nothing was left to personal motivation. The system carried the soldier forward whether he felt like participating or not. And over months and years of this structured existence, the habits became automatic. The training became identity. The soldier stopped thinking of discipline as something he had to summon and started experiencing it as simply who he was. For you, the modern practitioner, this means building what I call an immovable schedule. Sit down this week and assign specific time blocks to your physical training, not general intentions, not I will work out sometime in the afternoon, but actual fixed appointments. 6 in the morning, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday is your training time. It is not negotiable. It does not move for convenience. When you treat your training with the same non-negotiable commitment that a Roman soldier treated his morning drill, everything changes. Consistency compounds. Over 90 days of immovable scheduling, you will not recognize the person looking back at you in the mirror. The Roman military understood something modern science has since confirmed. Habits formed through external structure eventually become internal identity. You do not rise to the level of your motivation. You fall to the level of your systems. Building mental resilience through routine. There is a second dimension to structured discipline that most fitness content ignores entirely, and that is mental resilience. The Roman legionary's rigid routine was not just a physical training tool, it was a psychological one. When a soldier knew exactly what was expected of him every single day, uncertainty disappeared. And when uncertainty disappears, anxiety loses its grip. The man who knows what he must do next is not paralyzed by doubt. He simply does the next thing. The undisciplined mind constantly negotiates with itself, asks whether today is a good day to train, waits for motivation to arrive, skips when tired, stressed, or busy, produces inconsistent results and eroding self-respect. The disciplined mind operates from a pre-decided schedule, does not ask whether to train, performs the routine regardless of mood or circumstance, produces compound results and growing confidence over time. Cultivating mental resilience means deliberately practicing the act of doing what you committed to doing, even when every fiber of your being resists. Start small. If you scheduled a training session and you do not feel like doing it, do the first 5 minutes. Just the first 5 minutes. You will almost always continue past them. And on the rare days you do not, those 5 minutes still represent a victory, over the negotiating mind. Over time, those victories accumulate into an identity you can rely on under any pressure. Nutrition for sustained energy, eat like a conqueror. The Roman legionary's diet is one of the most underappreciated performance secrets in military history. These men were not eating elaborate feasts. They were not consuming the elaborate banquets you see depicted in popular culture. On campaign, the Roman soldier lived primarily on a grain-based staple called pasca, a mixture of water, vinegar, and sometimes honey, along with hard biscuits made from emmer wheat, dried legumes like lentils and chickpeas, olive oil, cured meats, and whatever foraged or purchased additions were available along the march route. It was simple, calorie dense, anti-inflammatory, and built for sustained energy output over long periods of hard physical work. What the Roman military understood intuitively and what modern nutritional science has now confirmed repeatedly is that performance nutrition does not require complexity. It requires consistency and quality. The legionary did not obsess over macronutrient ratios or worry about eating within a specific post-workout window. He ate whole foods, he ate enough of them, and he ate on a schedule. Those three principles, whole foods, sufficient quantity, and consistent timing, are still the bedrock of every legitimate high-performance nutrition plan in existence today. For you, the translation is direct and liberating. Stop chasing elaborate meal plans and expensive supplements. Begin with this. Build every meal around a quality protein source. Eggs, chicken, fish, legumes, or lean beef, a complex carbohydrate source, oats, rice, sweet potatoes, or whole grain bread, and a generous portion of vegetables or fruit. Add healthy fats through olive oil, nuts, or avocado. Eat 3 to 4 meals per day at consistent times. Drink water constantly throughout the day. That is it. That is the Roman plan, and it built an army that marched 20 miles a day and still had the energy to fight at the end of it. The Roman nutrition principles applied today. Let us get specific about how to eat for peak performance using the Roman framework as our guide. The goal is not restriction. The goal is fuel. You are training hard, thinking hard, and operating under real-world pressure. Your food needs to support that load, not fight against it. Complex carbohydrates. Oats, brown rice, sweet potatoes, and whole grain bread provide slow-releasing energy that sustains performance across long training sessions and demanding workdays. These are your march fuel. Eat them at breakfast and lunch when energy demand is highest. Lean protein sources. Eggs, chicken breast, canned fish, legumes, and lean beef support muscle repair and immune function. The legionary ate cured meats and dried fish because they traveled well. You have the luxury of fresh options. Use them at every meal. Healthy fats. Olive oil, nuts, and seeds provide anti-inflammatory benefits and sustained caloric density. The Romans used olive oil for cooking, dressing food, and even skincare. 1 to 2 tablespoons of olive oil daily is a simple, powerful habit. Consistent hydration. Roman soldiers carried pasca in part because it was a safe, electrolyte-containing drink. Today, plain water supplemented with a pinch of sea salt accomplishes the same thing. Aim for half your body weight in ounces of water daily, every day without exception. Teamwork and unity, the strength of the formation. One of the most commonly overlooked dimensions of Roman military excellence is the role of collective cohesion. The Roman legion was not a collection of individual warriors pursuing personal glory. It was a unit, a machine made of human parts that only worked when those parts moved together. The famous testudo formation, where soldiers locked shields into an impenetrable shell of overlapping bronze, is perhaps the most literal illustration of this principle. Individually, the shields left gaps. Together, they were impenetrable. The individual soldier's survival depended entirely on the man beside him doing his job. This is not a concept limited to ancient warfare. Every elite team in human history, military units, championship sports franchises, the greatest companies ever built, shares this same structural truth. The group that trusts each other, holds each other accountable, and refuses to let a teammate fail outperforms any collection of talented individuals working in isolation. The Roman legionary understood this at a bone deep level because his life literally depended on it. We would do well to take it just as seriously even when the stakes feel lower. Practically speaking, this means that your peak performance journey should not be a solitary one. Find a training partner. Join a group that shares your standards. Seek out a team environment at the gym, in a mastermind group, in a running club, or even in a structured online accountability community where your presence is expected and your absence is noticed. When others are counting on you, your follow through rate increases dramatically. And when you are surrounded by people operating at a high level, you raise your own standard simply by proximity. The formation makes the soldier, the team makes the performer. Leadership skills and fostering high performance teams. The Roman system also produced leaders at every level. The centurion who commanded 80 men was not simply a stronger fighter than the men he led. He was a better organizer, a clearer communicator, and a more disciplined model of the standards he enforced. Leadership in the Roman military was not a status granted from above. It was earned daily through visible commitment to the same standards expected of every soldier. The centurion marched when the men marched. He trained when the men trained. His authority derived from his example. Model the standards you enforce. You cannot demand discipline from others that you do not demand from yourself first. Show up to every session, every meeting, every commitment at full capacity. Your consistency becomes the standard others measure themselves against. Communicate with clarity and directness. Roman centurions use short, unambiguous commands. In your team or training environment, be clear about expectations, timelines, and standards. Vague leadership produces vague results. Hold the line on accountability. The Roman military had consequences for failure because consequences preserve the integrity of the system. In your personal and professional life, hold yourself and those around you to agreed upon standards. Letting things slide once invites letting them slide always. Recognize and elevate strong performers. Roman soldiers who performed well were publicly recognized and given responsibility. Acknowledge excellence in your team. Make high performance visible and rewarded, and you create a culture where everyone rises. Adaptability in tough conditions. Thriving when it gets hard. If there is one quality that separated the Roman legionary from the armies he defeated, it was his ability to perform under conditions that broke other men. He marched in heat and cold. He fought in rain, mud, mountain passes, and desert terrain. He built bridges over rivers that his enemy assumed were uncrossable. He laid siege to cities for months, sometimes years, without losing the organizational coherence of his unit. This was not because Roman soldiers were born tougher than their opponents. It was because they had been systematically exposed to hardship during training, long before they faced it in the field. The ancient Roman training philosophy embedded a powerful insight that modern performance science has since validated. Controlled exposure to discomfort builds the physiological and psychological machinery needed to handle uncontrolled discomfort later. When a Roman soldier had marched 20 miles in armor through a driving rainstorm during training, the 20-mile march on campaign felt familiar. Not comfortable, familiar. And familiarity with hardship is one of the most underrated competitive advantages a human being can possess. For you, this means deliberately engineering discomfort into your regular life. Take cold showers. Train outside when the weather's unpleasant. Fast for 18 to 24 hours once per month. Sign up for physical challenges that frighten you slightly. Rotate a long hike, obstacle race, a heavy loaded march event. Every time you voluntarily step into a hard situation and come out the other side, you add to a growing internal library of evidence that you can handle hard things. The library becomes your confidence. The confidence becomes your adaptability. And adaptability, as Rome demonstrated for 500 years, is the ultimate competitive edge. Practices for building real-world resilience. Adaptability is not a vague aspiration. It is a trainable skill built through specific practices applied consistently over time. Here are the practices the Roman framework points us toward, translated into language and actions that apply directly to modern high performance living. These are not suggestions, they are prescriptions from 2,000 years of proven human performance data. Cold exposure, and every shower with 2 to 3 minutes of cold water. This practice builds mental toughness, improves circulation, and trains you to remain calm under physical discomfort, a direct analog to the conditions Roman soldiers faced daily in the field. Voluntary fasting. Once per month, complete a 24-hour fast on water only. Roman soldiers sometimes marched for days on reduced rations. Training your body to function without constant food input builds metabolic flexibility and deep mental discipline. Weather exposed training. Refuse to cancel outdoor training due to weather unless conditions are genuinely dangerous. Rain, cold, and heat are not excuses. They are training variables. The soldier who has trained in misery does not fear miserable conditions. Comfort zone challenges. Each month, identify one thing that genuinely makes you uncomfortable and do it anyway. Public speaking, a new physical challenge, a difficult conversation, a solo trip. Consistent voluntary discomfort is the fastest known path to expanding your capacity. Scheduled reflection. Roman officers conducted after-action reviews. At the end of each week, spend 15 minutes reviewing what you did well, what you failed at, and what you will adjust. Learning from difficulty compounds over time into extraordinary self-awareness. Bringing it all together, the 5 pillars of the legionary life. We've covered a great deal of ground in this episode, and I want to bring it all together in a way that stays with you long after this podcast ends. The Roman Legionary's performance system was not complicated. It was not built on secret knowledge or special genetics. It was built on 5 pillars that reinforced each other continuously, creating a compounding loop of capability that made the Roman soldier one of the most effective human performers in the history of civilization. Let us name those pillars clearly because they deserve to stand on their own. Each pillar supports the others. Rigorous training without nutrition leads to breakdown. Nutrition without discipline produces inconsistency. Discipline without team cohesion creates isolation. And none of it survives contact with real-world pressure without the adaptability built through voluntary hardship. Together, these 5 pillars create a system so robust that it not only worked for Rome, it conquered Rome's world. Imagine what it can do for yours. Your 30-day Roman Legionary Challenge. Every episode of this podcast ends with a challenge, and episode 100 deserves a worthy one. Here's what I'm asking you to do for the next 30 days. Not forever, 30 days. Give me 30 days of living by the Roman framework, and then tell me honestly that your life has not changed. I've never had a single listener come back and say, it did not work. Not one. Because the system is not mine. It is 2,000 years old, and it has been proven in blood and stone. Week 1. Establish the foundation. Set your movable training schedule. Begin the weighted march twice this week. Cook every meal from whole, processed ingredients. Identify one training partner or accountability group and make contact. Week 2, add the intervals. Incorporate interval running twice this week alongside your marches. Add cold shower exposure to your daily routine starting at 60 seconds and building to 2 minutes by the end of the week. Review your nutrition honestly and remove one processed food from your regular diet. Week 3, elevate the discipline. Complete your first voluntary 24-hour fast this week. Train in whatever weather presents itself without negotiating. Begin a brief daily reflection practice. Just 10 minutes each evening reviewing your adherence to the 5 pillars. Week 4, perform under pressure. Identify and complete one significant comfort zone challenge this week. Lead a group workout, a team session, or an accountability check-in. Complete a weighted march that is longer or heavier than anything you have done before. Finish the 30 days with a full written review of your progress. Episode 100, The Road Ahead. Here we are at the end of episode 100 of the Peak Performance Podcast, and I want to close not with a summary, but with a truth. The Roman Legionary is not a relic of the ancient world. He is a model. He is a template for what a disciplined human being, committed to training, fueled by purpose, anchored in routine, supported by his unit, and hardened by voluntary adversity can become. He did not wait for motivation. He did not look for shortcuts. He did not optimize endlessly without executing. He trained, he ate, he marched, he fought, he built, and then he did it all again the next day. That is the secret. It was never a secret, actually. It has been sitting in the historical record for 2,000 years, waiting for anyone willing to read it and apply it. The gap between where you are today and where you want to be is not a gap of knowledge. It is a gap of action. The Roman Legionary closed that gap every single morning before the sun finished rising. And so can you. Thank you for 100 episodes. Thank you for showing up to this work with me week after week. This community and this formation is the reason this podcast exists. You are the Legion. Now go train. I will see you in episode 101. The strength of the wolf is the pack, and the strength of the pack is the wolf. The Roman Legionary knew this before the words existed to describe it. Build your formation, hold the line, march forward.